Guys, let's move through the Oklahoma schools now. I think we expect the Sooners to be much better this year. They were one of the best half teams of last season. They were scoring about 30 points a game. They were also giving up about 30 points a game, and it resulted in a 6-7 season. They went 3-6 in conference. A less than inspiring first effort from Brent Venables and the boys. The good news for the Sooners is this year Ted Roof has a bunch of new pieces to play with, and Oklahoma is expected to be much more physical on the defensive side of the ball. They should, I think, keep up that offensive output. Now, listen, they lose a proven running back in not Javante Barnes. He's
Eric Gray.
yes, Air Gray. Um, their offensive line loses a couple of tackles that were drafted, and they lose a couple of wide receivers as well. Now, Dylan Gabriel was a Big 12 newcomer of the year last season. Um, I think Oklahoma has 10-win potential in them this season. 3,100 yards for Gabriel last year, 25 touchdowns. You have the two running backs in Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, who were both freshmen last year. They rushed for 600 yards and 6 touchdowns combined. That was kind of in the second and third roles. So I think you're going to see them take a nice step forward. On defense, I mentioned they gave up over 30 points a game last year. The linebackers are going to be so critical to this Oklahoma team succeeding. And they've got Danny Stutzman coming back. He had 125 tackles to lead the team last season. They also get Dasan McCullough over from Indiana. When we did the Big Ten preview and we kind of eulogized Indiana football for this season, McCullough was one of the guys speaking at that funeral, right? He's on his way out. Maybe the most talented player on the Indiana defense. He's now wearing Sooner crimson and cream. I also think the defensive line should be a lot better this year. They really struggled to stop the run at times. Last season, Jordan Kelly, Isaiah Coe, anchor a line that racked up 105 tackles for loss. Then you have Jacob Lacey coming in as well. Guys, as we look towards their schedule, show me the rough part of their schedule. It's very, very balanced, right? Are there tough matchups on it? Yes. Is there a run that you go, oh boy, buckle up? I don't think so. SMU, week 2, you cannot fall asleep for that game. SMU will come into your home and beat you. But other than that, at Tulsa, at Cincinnati, Iowa State, like Oklahoma should be comfortably 5-0 going into that game against Texas, and it's a rivalry game, right? You never know what happened. They're obviously going to be extremely motivated to win after their worst loss in program history to the Longhorns last year. And then you go to Kansas, you go to Oklahoma State for Bedlam. I'll give you those aren't the easiest road games, but you finish with West Virginia at BYU and TCU. Outside of TCU, I don't think the Sooners should have a ton of trouble with that finish. Where do you guys net out on the Sooners, and what, if you had to give them a percentage chance to be back in Arlington, what would that be?
I don't think it's completely unheard of to say that they could be back in Arlington. Obviously, I don't think I've picked them there, but I do have them going 10-2, just kind of losing to the wrong spots. You're right, Mitch. There's not a tough part of the schedule, right? They definitely have some spots where they could drop games. SMU, that's dangerous. Texas, I think probably their hardest stretch is just at Kansas and at Oklahoma State, just because it's 2 road games, and both of those teams I think will be pretty plucky. I think they'll be good teams that can score some points. But yeah, I don't think that there's anything where it really goes and you say, oh, wow, this team's going to really, really struggle. I do think they lose to Texas. I do think they'll lose the closer to TCU to finish 10-2. That's where I currently have them. And I think the big thing that you want to see if you're Oklahoma, because this year, I think for Oklahoma, they're going to struggle with some motivation. They're not what Texas is in terms of the perception within the conference. Teams don't hate Oklahoma the same way they hate Texas. They just don't. They should, because Oklahoma's beaten a lot more teams and won a lot more Big 12 championships the last decade or so, but they don't come with the same, I don't know what it is about Texas that teams just seem to hate. I'll say that a little tongue-in-cheek, but there's just something about those Texas Longhorns that gets people riled up. But that's not what Oklahoma is, right? Oklahoma's not hated at the same level as their counterparts who are leaving. And I think they're going to struggle with a little bit of motivation to get up for this one. I think that a lot of Oklahoma fans are looking forward towards the SEC and saying, what do we need to be this year to be able to compete next year in the SEC? What do we have to show ourselves? What do we have to do to really set ourselves up? And I think what they want to see is a much better defensive showing. I think that if you're Oklahoma fans, you just got to play better on defense. They're going to win some games, but looking over at their statistics from last year, just about the only thing they did was tackle for loss. There wasn't a whole lot of tackling anywhere else on the field. They get them behind the line of scrimmage every now and then, and that was about it. Not a whole lot. They do, return a fair amount, obviously kind of mediocre pedestrian numbers in terms of returning production, but they will bring some guys back, maybe some of that on defense's addition by subtraction. And we hopefully will see a better product there. But I think if you're Oklahoma, you say, I want to see us play some better defense. It's optional in the Big 12, but if we can keep it close, not get blown out, right? Not have a repeat of some of those blowout losses. I'm looking at TCU. I'm looking at Texas. And just a couple of ugly games for them. If they can avoid those blowouts, even if they do lose those games, I don't think you're going to have too many sad feelings in Norman. With a 10-2 season kind of getting back to their standard, I think they'd feel pretty good about that.
Look, if you follow Message Board Geniuses, shout out to that amazing Twitter account. There's some Oklahoma fans, this is not representative of the entire fan base by any means, but there's some of them that are kind of questioning the move to the SEC after last year. But the defense can't be worse, right? It can't possibly be worse than it was last year. I trust Brent Venables to be better, to rally the troops. I think Ted Roof is a very good defensive coordinator as well. I think he's very experienced and has seen a lot of football in his many years. And
many years.
Many years. The defense is going to be a lot better this year. Will it be elite? I don't think so. Will it be noticeably better to where they're not just basically giving teams a scrimmage against air most of the time? Absolutely. I think that they'll make a few more plays. That's going to translate to a few more wins. They also lost 5 one-score games last year.
Yeah.
That tends to balance out. That tends to, especially for a talented team like Oklahoma, kind of regress to the mean. So I'm expecting a nice bounce back here for Oklahoma, probably in the 9-10 win range.
Yeah, the loss to West Virginia, inexplicable one-score loss. The loss to Texas, a little bit farther than that one-score game.
Gracious, how